from south of Gandhi Boulevard to the south of Franklin Bridge. During the design process, FDOT made sure that the existing roadway system for this area was not impacted. There was no change. Another fact, this project total length is 11 miles and includes the construction of 30 bridges. The Gateway Expressway is a combination of 6 separate projects. In 2014, FDOT made the decision to combine the 6 projects into one to minimize the impact to the community and expedite construction. One of the many challenges of this project was the coordination with multiple agencies and stakeholders. As you can see, this project is located within the boundaries of Pinellas County, the city of Largo, Pinellas Park, and St. Petersburg. And there was a lot of coordination with all the agencies, especially Pinellas County, because the east-west corridor is constructed within the right-of-way. Also, as part of the coordination with Pinellas County was the acquisition of 12.6 acres of right-of-way from the St. Pete Clearwater International Airport. The right-of-way acquisition required coordination between FDOT, Pinellas County, St. Pete Clearwater International Airport, and Federal Aviation Administration for over a period of 10 years. Also included in this project was the utility upgrade and relocation of the utility for Pinellas Park, the city of Largo, St. Pete, and Pinellas Park. And major relocation of major utilities, such as Florida Gas Transmission and Duke Energy. So, if you ask why this project is a success, you know, someone will say engineering. There's great engineering, and we all go to engineering school, but great engineering is expected. So what really makes it a success is close relationship with the agency and stakeholder. Or what really makes a project like this a success is the close relationship that we have with the community and the public. And I said before, the first submittal to the Federal Highway Administration was in 1993. However, the first public meeting was 2 years early, 1991, engaging the community in decision-making during the planning stage, listening to what they have to say. And now during the construction phase, FDOT have an open communication with the public. Anybody can call, will respond. Also, we have provided a website that keep daily update of what's going on in the project. If there's gonna be a detour, lane closure, roadway closure, the public will know 2 weeks ahead. On a personal note, what was really fascinating for me was the coordination with the 911 system, EMS, police department, and fire department. If you think about it, these people need to know the distance and the time it's gonna take to get to somebody's house or somebody that is in need. So when we're building all these bridges and you know, MSC wall and all this complicated engineering stuff, we always kept in mind how the ambulance is gonna be accessing the project during construction. So, for example, there is a section on, and you will see it on the video, on the east-west section of the project. There is a section that has 12 lanes, some of them elevated, some of them at the ground. So how, you know, if somebody might be having a heart attack, how the ambulance is gonna get there. So during the design process, they were very involved. They also, as you drive along the Salmon Express, you can see the designation of the ramp and the milepost. They were very involved in determining the ramp names, the location, and they also have all the coordinates for the project. Also, 2 weeks before we open the project, they are going to have access to get familiar with the on and off ramp and to get familiar with the project. And also, was very fascinating for me was the coordination with the Federal Aviation Administration. That took the coordination about 10 years. It seems that everything is in a period of 10 years, but it's because of the magnitude of the project. And just think about it. We're gonna have an elevated expressway in front of the runway of the airport. So you have to identify the maximum elevation of the bridges, the elevation of the trucks. That is very important. The trucks high on top of the bridge, the elevation of the lighting pole, the elevation of overhead signal, and all that had to be submitted with Federal Aviation Administration. What was very important, the person that is in charge of the aviation department at FDOT have a very good relationship with the Georgia Federal Administration. And again, it's about coordination. Just because we're gonna put the road, when we submitted the permit for the FAA, that permit gets to be, there was a notice to all the airports within the 15 miles. So once again, it's about communication, relationship, and it took about 10 years. And I can keep going on and on and on about all the wonderful experience I had on this project, but I know we need to keep moving on. One of the major partners was Florida Turnpike Enterprise, because they handle the tolling system. And this project is very unique. It has 2 types of tolling: static, just one price, shown in blue, west of I-275, and dynamic, shown in purple, along I-275. The design review process is done through the FDOT ERC system, and what ERC stands for is Electronic Review Comments. This system keeps track of review comments, comments resolution, and documentation of any changes in design. So for a project of this magnitude, after we have all the 6 separate projects that we have basically all the engineers in the area working for them, after we consolidated all the 6 projects, it took 148 reviewers and designers, 29 agency reviewers, 87 FDOT and consultant reviewers, and 32 designers. Because of the multiple agencies and stakeholders outside FDOT, FDOT provided 7 ERC training sessions, and there were over 200 people in attendance, because we needed to ensure that everybody had access to the system, they were familiar with the system, and they also understood the design review guidelines for this project. As I said, the project construction began August 2017. The project was awarded to Archer Western Demoya joint venture. The construction duration at this time is 1,389 days, 40% completion. The project has earned $162 million, and as I said, the anticipated completion summer of 2021. These are some of the pictures. And now I would like to show you a video that will just give you an overview of the project.
Gateway Expressway project is a vital part of Tampa Bay's growing transportation network. Once complete, the new toll road will provide a faster, safer, and more convenient travel experience to the Gateway area of Pinellas County. The project entails constructing a new elevated expressway from the Bayside Bridge and US 19 to I-275, and express lanes along the median of I-275 from south of Gandy Boulevard to the Howard Franklin Bridge. A toll-free option will remain available on the existing roadway network, providing drivers with a travel choice. We begin by flying along the north-south connection. While traveling south along the Bayside Bridge, the project adds a new flyover ramp, shown in blue, that allows drivers to access the new tolled road. The existing ramps, shown in orange, remain as a non-tolled route to and from Roosevelt Boulevard. Continuing south, the St. Pete Clearwater International Airport access is reconfigured and shifted south towards the new overpass at Terminal Boulevard. Road, a new interchange with access to and from the expressway will be added. Approaching 118th Avenue, the expressway curves around to merge with the east-west connection before heading toward I-275. The orange highlights illustrate the existing 118th Avenue roadway that remains non-tolled, and the blue highlights show the new toll connections between the airport, US 19, and I-275. We will now return to an overhead view of Pinellas County before traveling along the east-west connection. Moving south along US 19 toward 118th Avenue, we see the new ramps to and from the Gateway Expressway, shown in blue. Non-tolled access is provided via the existing US 19 frontage lanes, shown in orange. As we begin to turn to the east, we can now see how the new direct connect flyover ramps curve up and over the existing interchange and into the median of 118th Avenue. Expressway continues east, becoming a viaduct bridge at 49th Street. The bridge is made transparent, so the existing non-tolled 118th Avenue lanes can be seen underneath. Interchange ramps and into the median show the express lanes along I-275. Flying north along I-275, we begin to see the southbound express lane merge with the general use lanes. Approaching the Roosevelt interchange, the northbound express lane begins. Express lanes continue north towards the Howard Franklin Bridge, where they will connect with future express lane projects throughout the Tampa Bay region. The Gateway Expressway, the gateway to a new transportation future.
The total construction cost is, as of today, $580 million. I also already talked to Dr. Lu and got approval from Mr. Tracy Hood that if there is enough interest, we can arrange for a field visit. And also, this is on a personal note, and if there is any interest to get a tidbit of the engineering world after engineering school, Mr. Tracy Hood and I will be more than helpful to come and talk to you, or you can call us at any time, because sometimes we think it's one thing and when we get there it's completely something else. So now if you have any questions.
Am I allowed to ask?
Of course.
But I noticed in one place that the untold lane and the express lane merge, and I couldn't, it went by fast, but it looked like that the toll lane has to merge into the mixed flow, and I just wondered if you were worried that that might create a bottleneck there and back up traffic into the express lane and also increase the travel time. I'm asking that because about 20 years ago, I think, a friend of mine did a study in Seattle where they have some reversible express lanes, and they had striped it like that originally, and then they had to redo it, basically forcing the free traffic to merge into the express lane instead. Because usually there might be lower volumes in that express lane and you keep it going. Otherwise you back up onto the express facility. Maybe that's a small detail.
No, we started coordinating with the Florida Turnpike as early as 2012. So everything is just planned out to the single detail. But that's a great question, because we spend a lot of time on that. You know, the north-south and east-west, west of I-275 is a static tolling. It's gonna be one price. And since it's a static tolling, we're allowed to have buses, trucks, and cars. So once it gets close to I-275, and when we transition to express lane, trucks are not allowed, and it's a variable tolling. That means that the cost varies depending on the demand of traffic. Way before, we let them exit to the general use lane, to the regular travel lane. So there's a lot of overhead signs that indicate ahead of time getting out of the static tolling, getting to the general use lane, and also the ones that are on the general use lane also get the chance to get to the express lane on I-275. Jason, would you like to add anything else?
Yeah, and all the merge and diverge points between both the toll lanes to general use and the express to general use, looked at the anticipated volumes. Everything was modeled using Coursum for this project. We didn't do a VISM model for this one, but it was done using Coursum. And looking at some of those projected volumes, since the express lanes are somewhat regulated by the tolling amounts, Luckily, we can control the volume coming in and out of those. But at all those locations where traffic is, since this is, especially at the southern end of the 275 express lane, it is the end of the system at this time. And so worked a lot with FHWA and Turnpike on how long do we need to make this transition.
Right.
Currently at the, this is a buffer separated express lane, so we have basically a 4-foot painted buffer with express lane markers, kind of like flexible delineators every 5 feet. So people, same thing if you drive in the Veterans Expressway, in those express lanes, same thing physically separating it. There's about a half mile from the end of that buffer to the beginning of the taper in that direction. So there's a pretty long distance where traffic can begin to merge out of that lane, and then about a 1,500-foot taper where we physically end that lane before everyone has to get back into general use. Ultimately, going north.
My concern is we know that people wait till the last second.
They do, yeah.
But we'll see when it opens, I guess.
We'll see. We've supplemented it with some pavement markings in the ground. You'll have overhead signs, single post signs to the side, and then also pavement markings with kind of those express lane ends merge signs as you go forward. One important thing, especially in the southern direction, we looked at the existing congestion and where you've got backups today. If you notice, looking at the video, there's a staggered begin-end of the express lanes along 275. You know, northbound it begins north of Gandy, southbound it begins south of Gandy, and that's because there's a significant backup today at the southbound exit to Gandy Boulevard. So instead of ending the express lanes and forcing everyone to merge in a congested situation, we've extended the express lane past that backup into an area where it's relatively free flow conditions today. Of course, throughout the life of this project, you don't know, but you know, you design as much taper and transition lengths into the project as you can, looking at your budget, looking at your other constraints, but we're reasonably certain things will work.
Tracy, do you want to add anything on the?
And how frequently will the dynamic tolls be changed?
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a mix of, we use a microwave vehicle detection, MVDSs, to sense the traffic flow, and then also there's a CCTV coverage of all the express lanes, approximately quarter-mile spacing, so the operators in our traffic management center can get a good view of what the conditions are today. There's a very complex algorithm that they work on in the back office to determine what those toll rates are, and every 15 minutes they will be updated. There's a minimum toll rate, and then based on congestion, it does go up.
Could go.
I would like also to add that before 6 months prior to opening to the project, Turnpike and FDOT have a public hearing, and the rates are going to be set, and people are going to understand what to expect from the project.
So,
Hi, nice to see you. We miss her. She interned at the FDOT, and she was very instrumental to our group, and hopefully you can come back.
thank you. I learned a lot from our office too. But I was wondering how would our roadway configuration will be able to match up with the new Howard Franklin Bridge once we get it at the construction and north of the current 1990 bridge?
Okay, that's a great question. Right now, we are anticipating construction in 2020, and I'm gonna let Jason answer this.
That was a question with some insider knowledge there.
Yes, that's.
So yeah, one of the big points of focus of this project is, you know, making sure it works with the adjacent projects that are going on. When Gateway Expressway was really originally advertised and we came up with the concept plans, we didn't know when Howard Franklin was going to be replaced. There was a possibility the construction would overlap, but this project was executed about 3 years ago. Now Howard Franklin, I think you guys heard a presentation on that just a few weeks ago, but it's currently being advertised. We expect the contract to be executed end of this calendar year. So we just said late 21 is our construction completion date. They're going to be in construction in early 2020, so we've got an overlap now. Over the past 6 months or so, we've been working on what's the best timing of how to do this transition and taper our lanes. Because in order to open up the southbound express lanes, currently today, express lanes when Gateway is constructed, the express lanes in the southbound direction begin right at 4th Street, which is kind of the limit between the Howard Franklin project and the Gateway project. But in advance of that begin of express lane, you've got 2 miles worth of signing that lets people know that it's a toll road coming up, that's a left entrance, and what the toll rates are. Before you make the decision, if you're gonna pay this variable priced road to definitely save a few minutes depending on the time of the day of the congestion, you wanna know what the amount is. So Turnpike and MUTCD have some guidance on how many signs you need in advance of this decision-making process. In a perfect scenario, you have 2 toll rate signs, 2 toll status signs going back 2 miles in advance. Since this is going to be a construction zone, we've got some relief on some of those commitments. We don't have to have quite as many signs, because anything that we build now, with Howard Franklin being offset to the north, is going to have to be rebuilt by the Howard Franklin project. So we've been working very closely with them to figure out how can we minimize any throwaway or relocation costs of the project. The last thing we want to do is build all these signs, all the lights, toll gantries, and then have them be moved 6 months later. So we've gone through now and we've doing some contract modifications to the Gateway project to better sync up with the Howard Franklin project, and we're putting a few time constraints on those projects, so we better know when will Gateway be done working on this piece, and then Howard Franklin can come in. And really, that's what you got to do. You got to keep assessing the situation of the projects. Where do you anticipate them to be? And now that we've got funding, we know a set date, we're making an adjustment.
And this is going to be constantly tweaking, because like we said, the end construction for the Gateway is going to be 2021. For Howard Franklin is going to start. So this is just going to, decisions are not made now. It's just constantly communicating with the contractor, with the designer, and all the Federal Highway Administration, and Turnpike. Tracy? You might know a secret we don't know.
Is there any way we can observe how the users will respond to the variable price, and then try to somehow improve the performance of the algorithm to determine how high the price should be based on this kind of observation?
And as I said before, we started coordinating with the Turnpike, and they set all those parameters where that everything about the traffic, the congestion, everything is built in. There is study after study that this is well planned ahead of time. And like I said, 6 months prior to the project, everybody is gonna know what expected.
Sometimes when you're an engineer, you're an expert in certain areas. In other areas, you know when to look to the experts, and the tooling algorithm is definitely outside of my experience. But luckily, Turnpike does this all around the state. We've got express lanes operating heavily down in South Florida through 95 Express. 595 has some variable price express lanes. I think District 2 up in Jacksonville has a few that are opening up right now, and then Veterans eventually will have the variable price tolling turn on instead of the kind of open signs as they have out there right now. So they're continually working on these algorithms, looking at the data, and determining, at what point, how far you have to raise to start to get people to stop using the lanes when it becomes congested. And I don't know how they do that, but they're smart.
We also coordinated very close. We learn a lot. One of the things that is great about working for the state of Florida, that the Miami area had a lot of experience with express lane. So there was a lot of coordination with District 6, which is Miami area, and we learned a lot. So we got to visit, I went to a seminar, we got to visit where they had the algorithm and walls of computers and screens, and we learned a lot from past experiences.
Well, there are a lot of different types of dynamic pricing, right? So you could have a static dynamic, if you will. In other words, you plan it out. We do it. That's where the algorithm's important. If you plan out and say it needs to be this much then, and then at 2 o'clock we switch it to this much, and at 5 o'clock we switch it to this much. So that's kind of where the algorithm comes up, either there, or if you're planning, or when you're setting it up and trying to project what's going to happen with it. But once it starts, if you're using live dynamic, they just watch it on the screens. They have an ITS system, they have cameras. If it starts to slow down, then they start raising the price. So it's just what it says. It's a dynamic system. So the algorithm can have a function, but once it's started, or if you're not in a fixed system, the algorithm is not important once it gets going. You change it as needed.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding to like once the project is done and the whole news work is open, how is it going to affect the other road network that is around the gateway area? Is that considered in the project? How is it going to affect like more traffic into the other network or?
Well, one of the things that you saw, the magnitude of the project and the boundaries, was very important for FDOT to keep the same roads. So nothing in the existing roads system have changed. That's number one. And what we see with the traffic projection, reducing congestion, enhanced mobility, traffic study, is actually gonna enhance the area, because now people, instead of going through 6 traffic lights, they can access I-275 from Bayside Bridge or US 19 or Olmerton Road. So everything was determined of the traffic volume, the projection to the future, and actually this will make traffic better and faster.
Yeah, I can't say specifically that I've looked at the study, but I know when I worked on systems like this, the studies, as I understand, have shown that it makes the overall system better. In other words, you think, well, we're going to create this place where we're going to keep cars off so they go faster. That means there's going to be more people other places. But in reality, everybody gets a benefit. You get more throughput on the one set of through lanes that reduces the congestion on the regular lanes. It trickles down. So it's not like you're just making it really good for these people and terrible for the other people. You actually get more traffic through the system, so it works better.
It provides kind of some new regional connections. So you get the long distance traffic is removed, free up more time for the general use or the people that are doing the local business. Similar like on the Selman Expressway West Extension. We're bringing it from the Selman all the way through the median of Gandy over to the bridge. It'll get the people that were going to Pinellas County or going from Pinellas County to Brandon out of those lanes, free up the use of the people that want to go to the businesses, want to go to their houses down there on Gandy Boulevard. As part of the PD studies that went into the Gateway project, as we looked at, what are the existing connections out there today? What do we need to maintain? The overall goal or rule was, let's not take away any connections. If you can get there today for free, you need to always be able to get there for free. As we looked at how you fit the project in, there were a few areas where there was a slight lane reduction, like along 118th Avenue, which is a county road. It was always designed as a 6-lane facility with eventually some type of expressway being built in the median. And so when 6 lanes were added, they were always with the intent of, all right, these are going away when we add the 8-lane section with the elevated lanes. And that had to be balanced out. We had to make sure that this was a decision originally made 25 years ago. Do the traffic numbers still back it up? And as we went through and looked at the projected volumes of people who will elect to take the toll road instead of the surface streets, everything that was originally predicted was confirmed with the new Corsa models and showed same level of service for the surface streets once the new volume was put elevated.
And then I'm gonna go back to relationships. Even before we started the process, and I'm gonna repeat, we have public hearing. We listen to the community. We listen to what people's concerns are. We listen to the problem they're having with traffic. So everything just take into account. And I go back, like I said, we are all engineers. We all go to school for engineering. Engineering is great, but is involving the community. Even for all this traffic, for elevator roads, they have an input.
As you said, this master plan was designed way before, 20 years back. So what did you guys assume the future would be like this is planned, like this construction will take place till 2021 and it should last for next 30 years or something. So being in 2000 year, you should be predicting what will happen in 2040. So what are the considerations you took from those, like, about the future?
So,
I'm looking at you.
yes, we always look at a 20-year horizon for all of our projections. So when the project originally started back in 95, 93, then they were just looking, all right, what are the operations in 2015? Obviously, we didn't even start construction until 2015. So you have to keep doing reevaluations. You got to update your traffic numbers. You have to update your studies as you go forward through the different stages. So we did, so when the original study was done back in 93, traffic numbers were approved. Then it went into design in the early 2000s. The design was refined, traffic numbers were updated. Then we started using about a 2010, 2015, or sorry, about a 2020 design year. When we finally went and advertised as Gateway Expressway in 2015, we were using a 2035 volume. So again, we have to keep making adjustments. Originally, when the Gateway Expressway was laid out, there weren't the express lanes along 275. So all those connections were connecting to an existing 6 to 8 lane interstate. Now, as the designs morphed, as it become 2018, 2019, we know, all right, now we have express lane systems along 275. So everything is continually evolving. You know, you get the concept approved, but then you have to update. You have to look at the changes to the environmental, social, and economic impacts of your project to make sure it still meets the goal and still is better than that no-build scenario.
So mainly, people design it on traffic count.
Looking at the traffic projections to determine where your access points need to go and verify number of lanes. You know, we want to make sure that we don't build a single lane flyover when it really needs to be a 2-lane flyover. Conversely, you can't just build a 2-lane flyover everywhere because it costs a lot more. You may cause more environmental impacts. You may have to take a lot more right away to build that 2-lane flyover. So it's looking at your projections, seeing what the lane calls are, and seeing how close am I to that threshold of needing a second lane. And all that goes into the big black box of evaluating pros, cons, costs, impacts, before you get FHWA, the local governments, and the states to all approve this is the direction we're going forward.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and talk about something I know very little about. A lot of you guys might know more, is traffic projections. So I think everybody over here are design engineers, not traffic engineers. But I know the traffic engineering, the traffic study component of this, and it goes almost back some to the relationship and the partnerships. I mean, we look at what the local growth plan, when you're developing, you do counts, but then you have to project those counts. What do you base those projections on? Well, you look at big statistics about how many people are coming to Florida every year. And then you look at the local growth plans. They're looking out 50 years. What's the county going to look like in 50 years? The zoning's going to change. You're going to have these types of areas. What's the density of those areas? How much traffic do they generate? So that's the kind of information that pulls into the modeling, traffic modeling, that takes those counts from last year and then projects them 30, 40, 50 years from now. All those various components of what's the big growth factors, and then what are the local plans, and is the county going to become more urbanized, or do they just want to stay agrarian, or how's that going to work? You try to tie all those things into your traffic modeling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I sound like I knew what I was talking about?
But I think they're struggling because this project started before they were born.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Like this is way better than it's good for today's condition and everything. How did you guys know that?
You looked at how many people were going to be, you thought would be in the state, and it's always doing this, right? But you look at what's the trend overall. Where's the trend line going, and you think, okay, if that many people are coming to the state, what are we going to do? And again, look at the development plans, the growth plans for the counties, and I can tell you, it's not always right. You know, sometimes when we were predicting growth back when the recession hit, you know, all the lines were flat, so we were predicting, well, you're not going to have much growth for a long time. Well, that wasn't quite true. It happened for a little time. Now it's back. So you try to look at the longer range trends and think about what you're going to need. Sometimes we get it pretty close, sometimes we don't.
Let me just add something to this. Remember, these were six separate projects, kind of isolated. So when the department is going back to the relationships, when the department took a look at these projects, it would have taken to build all these projects over 20 years, impacting the community, the traffic. So recently, just 4 years ago, is when the department went and got the 6 projects together. And that's when we have to look at the traffic as a whole, as a region.
So with all this modeling you just described, what's the current projection of when the system's going to be obsolete?
When cars are flying, is that maybe? I don't know.
So there are so many cars.
Yeah, I don't know. Dude, what's our design year?
Our design year is 2035. I don't 2035. Project was advertised in about 2015.
By 2035, you'll need another project like this.
Possibly. 2035. Everything was operating at least a level of service E. Obviously we'd like better, and some sections were significantly better. But overall, the worst link of the project was still a level of service E. Hopefully that is accurate and isn't the case, but again, the projects are always evolving. I mean, currently, right now I said the express lanes stop at Gandy. Well, another PD&E study is underway now to extend those express lanes further south into downtown St. Pete. So it never stops, it never ends. People keep coming to Florida, you keep reevaluating and looking what are the needs for the next 20 years.
And this project, I am so sorry, and this project also just is not just isolated, it's part of the Tampa Bay region. There are so many projects connecting to the north, connecting to the south, and as you saw the presentation for the Howard Franklin Bridge, and there are future improvement on downtown, past downtown, west, north. So it's just part of a group, and every time we just keep adding project, everything is look as a whole. This is just the first phase of all the future comments to the area, and I'm sorry.
No problem. I came in a few minutes late. What was the initial purpose? Was it just to reduce traffic congestion and increase connectivity?
Traffic congestion, safety, and traffic operation of the area.
And what stage is it under construction right now?
Right, we began construction August 2017, and we're anticipating the construction to be completed, and we always use season. We say summer of 2021. We need to take into account rainy days, holidays, many other factors.
And then, since it's been such a long time, is there any controversy, like Tampa Bay Next, for instance? Do you have to think about different social impacts, or no, because this is all very connected?
Well, on this section of the project, this is considered to be the first segment. As I said, we could, very good question. We got the public involved, and as of right now, we don't have any controversies at this point. There might be during construction because of the traffic. This is slow and construction, but I think this is a project to kick off all the future improvement that we're going to have. And we're really looking forward. Thank you for the question.
I think I'd just say one of the big benefits over there versus the Tampa Bay Next is that Tampa Bay Next, the interstate's cutting through a bunch of highly developed residential areas. So you're literally putting a highway in people's backyards. Over there in the Gateway area, it's mostly commercial or industrial type stuff. You got the landfill over there. You got the airport. You've got things that don't really care if there's a big roadway next to them or not. So I think that's a factor that helps keep it from getting the kind of negative, having the negative impacts that we started seeing with the big interstate widening through Ybor and downtown Tampa and all those things.
Really, the department did a great job on those relationships, as Ada mentioned. This was a project that was the county, Fort Pinellas is Pinellas County's MPO, a metropolitan planning organization, but this was always a very high priority for them going back the 20 years. And in fact, Pinellas County put in about $70 million of the construction cost for this project out of their penny for Pinellas sales tax. So it was a project that was desperately wanted by the county as a whole. The cities and the counties were all behind the project, and we kept doing outreach. We did that video that you saw today was prepared for the public hearing for the project and also for the MPOs, so we could go ahead and make sure we explained to all parts of the community and the local governments what the project is, what are the impacts, and always being very upfront that it was a toll road. It was, one of the first toll, other than the Bayway going down to St. Pete Beach and Tierra Verde, there's not really any other toll roads in Pinellas County. So really want to make sure up front, hey, this is a toll road, this is how it's going to be affected, but we're maintaining the existing access points. You're still going to be able to get where you can get today, and making sure the people that were impacted, mostly commercials and mostly actually county property at the airport, knew what it is and knew the benefit of why the Department of State was moving forward on this project.
And one more thing, and you start asking why it took so long, but just the right-of-way acquisition with the St. Pete Clearwater Airport, it took over 10 years. So sometimes you have to just project all these right-of-ways before we even start to the project. And also, we also impacted the cemetery. That was we have that on US 19, you saw the triple level bridges, noises. When people go and visit their loved one at the cemetery, they really don't want to listen to cars. They want to have privacy. We have to take into consideration all the noises in the area. There were reports and studies how the noise is going to affect the people going to the cemetery. So that's why in this case it took so long.
Okay, let's see if we have more questions from the audience. All of us reaching the time limit. So, very impressive visual effects in your video. So I got one question. 2 weeks ago, we got Mrs. Santana Lori from the Jacobs Engineering coming out here to talk about the different contracting methods for construction. So for this particular project, what kind of contract method is used for the construction, like a design build or PPP?
Who we're talking to? Are you
Yeah, it's all
asking
design
about-
build, yeah, design build.
Yeah, it was design build.
Design build.
Yeah.
And that is, I tried it, because, we're also used to, for the low bid, whoever have the lowest cost win the project, but when it went to design build, we do design build to expedite construction and give a better project to the community. We have a concept plans, and then when we, select the companies that are gonna go after the project, it's a period of 1 year that we're dealing and see which company have an equal or better design. So I didn't wanna touch on the design build, but it's just expedite, it just bring a better product to the community.
Thank you. So we're running out of time. So please join me in thanking the FTR, like Eyra and Jason and JC for coming down here to give us a nice presentation. And remember, Jason said, Eyra said that they would love to provide the opportunity for you guys to go to the construction site for future. So if for those of you who are interested, you can contact me or the IT executive. So and then we can make further arrangements. Okay. So next week is a spring break, so we don't have seminar next week, and then we have the week after next week we're gonna have Professor from the UCF coming on here to talk. Right.
Thanks, Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.